Hey there, I'm Ram Monkey, and it's been an insightful discussion so far with Meghna Kulkarni ma'am, Tejaswi Khatri sir, Suditi, and Dr. Aqsa Shaikh, exploring the importance of a more inclusive environment in education. So, thank you for making it to episode 2 of Queering the Syllabus, a podcast on inclusive education by the Humsafar Trust, supported by the CSR initiative of BMC Software India Private Limited.
I think, you mentioned Arvi Malhotra, the story that you just mentioned, and there's so many names like that, like Pranshu and all of these. I think up until now, like what we've discussed, really powerful. I do feel like just from what you just said, right, we're going to go into the next bit of what we're going to cover, which is what can we propose to kind of get things moving? How can we make things a little different? So, one of the things you said is about bringing about change. I think that kept coming up a lot in the whatever we've spoken about before, that there's a dire need for bringing about change. So let's start with let's look at it 2 levels, okay? And so for the first one, we're looking at the macro level, umbrella fields type, upper se. So the other one you spoke about what the difference of a faculty in the classroom make, and we'll return to that. But first we can just discuss what kind of changes do we need on the umbrella level. But leaving aside that, whether it is in the institution, whether it is some help coming from outside, from corporates or anything like that, let's discuss those things.
I think on the macro level, we would love to have some sort of structure there wherein it is not a taboo to have sex and mental health as a topic inside of all the syllabuses, and it is like a sensitization program should exist for all students for all courses. It should not be only restricted to something in humanities or something on the idea of social sciences. It is something that to deal with a lot of people, you need to have some sort of structure. Now, when it came to looking at people at jobs also, we did not have a lot of role models. It is something that if you see around how many of the straight men are just talked about when it comes to independence, when it comes to emergency period, when it comes to any political history, you do not have a lot of representation there at all. And then what exactly is the concept of representation? There is no persons other than a straight male guy somehow making a lot of foolish decisions around different occasions, which we are suffering now. Where are these role models? Where is the first trans person who has become an architect? Where is the first woman who has somehow cleared off a doctor thing? And what has been her work like? Where are these stories? So these stories have to be part of the framework. It has to be part of the textbook. It needs to be told to everyone. And then this is how we usually build empathy. So I would love to have some sort of, because when we see around Mumbai, I see a lot now when what Future Generali does, or what Godrej does, or what the idea of Axis Bank dance. So we have all these people who have gone there and made some changes. Otherwise, the representation is very sad. It is something where you see the trans person also only in terms of movies as well and on the traffic signals begging. So nobody gives a damn about that it is something which is building up empathy. So you would want that. That is my probably take of it.
One of the things you mentioned, I'm so glad that we actually have one of the first transgender doctors sitting here.
On the panel. Yeah!
Thank you for being here.
I'll do something that my friend usually does. This is a round of applause.
Wow.
So
couldn't get a round table, you got a round of applause.
Yes.
But speaking of the medical spaces or higher educational institutes, and medical institutes I think are one of the most difficult places to change, and they are the ones who require maximum change, because it's the two systems which started discriminating against queer and trans people were the medical and the legal system, where the most exclusion actually happened, and they actually kind of demonized, pathologized people, saying you are a person with a disease or you are against the law. And especially the branches like psychiatry, have done a lot of damage to our lives in the past. And now to try and bring reforms in those spaces is a huge challenge. And we need, support from the government. We can't really get away with that, because after all, education is a right that's guaranteed to us. And under the Trans Act, a discrimination-free education is guaranteed to us. The anti-ragging provisions say that you cannot be ragged on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. So it's important to, hold accountability on those points. But at the same time, we can't really expect the government to do everything. And therefore, we need to also start looking at piloting change from within the institutions. And as part of Sangat, there is some work that we have started doing on that. One such is the change in the curricula. Trying to remove all the redundant stuff, queerphobic, transphobic stuff from the curricula and replacing that with the knowledge that doctors need to treat future trans queer patients. At the same time, what we have worked is with the queer students in trying to make the campuses queer friendly with the administration, etc. And one important learning that we had during that point is the importance of allyship. We are always going to be in minority. And therefore, if we expect that it is the responsibility of queer teachers or students or administrators only to bring the change, that's never going to happen. We need allyship, we need solidarity between marginalized communities. So if we want in the education institutes the reforms to come, we need to work on infrastructure. Like for example, as simple as washrooms or hostels which are gender neutral. Another important place is curricula. They need to change. When I was in the medical school, I used to read textbooks which said that being gay, and I used to consider myself gay at that time, is against the law. You are having a disease and you are also mentally ill and you are also pervert. It was mentioned as a sexual perversion. I'm like, मैं क्या करूँ? I should kill myself, if I'm such a person. And then how do you, open up to your colleague who is also reading the same textbook? How do you open up to your teacher who is teaching you that in the class?
Yeah.
It's not just lack of inclusion, there is exclusion which is systemic in nature.
Maybe Meghna ma'am, you can elaborate on that. Yes. What is some of the work that you all are doing at Rainbow Sika? What is the advice you give? Are you all talking to educational spaces? Maybe.
Yeah, so I was saying about the curriculum, we need to look at, I think the Kerala government has started that, they are doing a lot of work on the, very subtle things like the kind of language they use, the kind of images they use, the kind of examples they give, right from the primary level of the children. I think that is more important because see, when we talk about sensitization, where we are going right now is the level of children who are already teenagers, but the children are already getting these stereotypical messages right from their first grade. So the first thing that we should really look at is making the language neutral, gender neutral languages, or even for example teacher training. When we talk about sensitization, it's more about focusing on what do you need to how do you sensitize teachers right from the primary, not or even the kindergarten level, because that is where all these things begin. So what Swikar has done is, and it's a baby step actually, because it's just 1 year now that we have started this, that we said that we need to focus on all the different stakeholders, not just the teachers, but the students, the administrators, and also the parents too at a certain point. People find it uncomfortable to even sit through a conversation. Forget about listening to the whole thing and engaging in with that whole discussion or that whole topic that we have been talking about. So, just that bit about, so what is love? We need to talk about that. Because a lot of messaging that goes across the media is a very heterosexual sort of love, which is what actually people, whether they're children, they're adults, they're oldies, or whoever it is, keeps getting those messages about those simple kind of things. So we go from there. We start from a thing that, so what are we touching on first is not, we don't get into the extreme technical things because people are not there. So we look at that, and the modules that we prepare, they go from the simple to the complex and more about how do they incorporate all these aspects about allyship, about inclusion in their daily classes. So it's not something that they sit one day for a workshop and then it just it blows their mind away one day and then it's there. It's lying somewhere collecting dust. But it's something that we need to do periodically, make them, give them sort of, a program. and that's how the change will come. It's going to be difficult because right now, for example, we are working on one college where something or the other happens. Elections came and it got shifted. So things are there which are we feel that maybe this is not working, but it has to happen. We have to be continuously on that, that kind of thing.
Something you said with me really sticks. Like you said, this work needs to be done periodically,
Yeah.
and I really completely believe that that's really important. Because I'll give you an example. Just recently, I was in a panel discussion held at a college where there was 3 trans folks coming and they were talking, and people felt like it was too long. Like, अरे इतना time के लिए ये trans issues पर बात कर रहे कितना, because you're not used to it. Nobody sat in 15 minutes you've not given to this topic where you've sat across and a trans person is in the room or a queer person in the room and talking these issues. So when it happens, it feels like wow, too much, So definitely that need for periodical, sensitization definitely needs to happen completely. I think all of you shared some really valuable points. The next one I actually want to ask Suditi, in terms of the faculty, I think some of the work you all are doing at HST, from that perspective, what can be done in the classrooms, at the grassroots, in terms of teachers, faculty members, that kind of that?
Yeah. So, Humsafar Trust has been working with the education sector at least for 8 years now in a very structured manner with the help of CSR initiatives of a lot of companies who are trying to do really progressive work with the LGBTQ plus spectrum. But with a lot of it is centered around sensitization. We have modules for students from pre-primary levels up to 6th, 7th grade, and then we have a different module for students in secondary education, higher secondary education, and we have a separate module for teachers, and all of these modules have been created in consultation with community members from the entire spectrum, in consultation with speaker parents, in consultation with educators, trying to assess where the learning gaps are and how we can really meet educators where they are and students where they are in age appropriate manners. So we try really hard to meet with the same set of schools and with the same set of educators periodically, and we do often suffer from the questioning of like, ho gaya na ek bar aapka. But for the most part, we've been able to work around it. We've been able to enter the same schools consistently at least once a year.
At least at Pride Month.
Well, I mean, schools we don't suffer that bias from. With corporates, yeah, at least during Pride Month. Schools have been usually nicer, colleges have been nicer. We engage a lot with queer clubs in women development cells in colleges who are able to advocate for sensitizations within their systems as well. And help organizations like the Humsafar Trust and other CBOs to enter those spaces. So we really do try to keep entering those spaces here and there, and we're trying hard to move out of metropolitans. I'm very happy to say yesterday a colleague of mine was carrying out a sensitization session in Patna, and 2 others were in Indore and Bhopal. So we're trying to go just about everywhere on the map, taking the message, and we try to keep going every year, every month, touching those same populations again to kind of reinforce those learnings. We also try to generate data because it then helps advocacy, right? The more literature there is on the unique challenges of LGBTQ plus students, the more we'll be able to get social protections for them. Most of the funding that we received to conduct these sensitizations has been because we did a study, it's called a Transcend study, which highlighted that 80% of trans students drop out by standard 8th. And these are 80% who've been able to enter school systems in the first place. So interventions like those are going on, and we're trying to develop every year. We're trying to rework our modules every year. We're trying to do better in teacher training every year. We're trying to advocate also for changes in curriculum. The new education policy does not touch on comprehensive sexuality education, let alone the sex, gender, sexuality spectrum. So we're at least trying to get those GRs in place so that, for example, all Mumbai public schools are supposed to get these sensitization sessions done. at least once a year.
Okay.
So those efforts are in place. Let's see.
No, something you spoke about the work that Humsafar Trust is doing, okay? So you're doing a lot of, like you said, Bhopal, Indore, Patna, I think I heard those
Yeah.
ones for sure. Language. A lot of time when we talk about these issues, people bring up language, right? Like they're
Yeah.
like, okay, fine, but one side is gender, and how do you get past the gender of it all in languages? But also the other is just like, how do you translate words and not give them a reference point that is so heavily seeping in stigma, because that is like, I love the word hijra, but this word carries such stigma. I love it because of its history and what it means for my culture, my Muslim folks, and it comes from there. But it's such a heavy word because of the stigma that's attached. So any of you have any insights to share on how do we go about overcoming language?
This is sorry, yeah,
Please go ahead. Yeah.
topic which is very interesting about how do you label, brand or name a marginalized group. And while we are speaking about the queer folks here, I mean, I want to extend that conversation also to other marginalized groups. And we know about the word queer and how that was used as a derogatory word, but then how the community really has taken up that word with a lot of pride. Same way, I mean, hijra, kinnar, these are our identities, and people have very proudly taken up those. Interestingly, when we were talking about the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act, that's an English word, right? But the Act's Gazette notification is also in Hindi.
Okay.
And in that, the word transgender is translated into Ubhaylingi,
Okay.
which is not the correct translation of trans persons, because Ubhaylingi means intersex.
Okay.
Oh.
It has to do with the ling rather than with the gender.
Physicality.
And it's really weird that they had to find this word Ubhaylingi and other words like to describe trans identity, when they could have simply said transgender people. Same problem happened when Dalit people were called Harijan by someone who was not a Dalit, right? Of course, that's Mahatma Gandhi. And the community rejected that term, saying we are not Hari ke Jan. We are Dalit, we like that identity. And now you have seen a lot of people putting that identity with pride, right? So it's important that who is labeling the community, it's the community who has to decide the label for themselves. Also, there has to be diversity in that label. When we talk about trans people, it doesn't include the various identities that we have in India. For example, someone is a Jokti and they say, I'm not a trans person, or someone in Northeast wouldn't want. So then it has to be flexible and inclusive even in the words, languages that we're using for the community. And it's very important to ask who is giving that label. Is it the people from the community or someone with the privilege and is like, oh, come, I'll give you a label and a name.
Yes.
Yeah, very beautifully put.
Very important point.
I think the Queer Trans Wellness Center in Hyderabad is doing a very, very cool project. It's called Declassifying Queerness. So what they're trying to do is bringing together all this literature, all these studies, all the whole glossary on queerness in the LGBTQI+ spectrum, and they're calling community members to their center, and they say pick a book of your choice or pick whatever literature of your choice, and you translate it in your regional language. And so it's essentially community
Involvement.
members. Yeah, they're making the language their own, making terminology their own, and really localizing it, right? And I think language is so important. For example, when you said कि panic attack जैसा भी कुछ होता है, so when you have that language, it's a real experience, it's a valid experience. Gender identity disorder is, of course, it's not the right language, but the fact that there was language for it helps contextualize your experience. So yeah, I think that's also why I think when we were talking about COVID, it really helped because so many of us were on the internet discovering this language for our experience. Like I understood what asexuality meant because there was a word for it. I understood what being non-binary meant because I was experiencing all of these things, but वो शब्द ही नहीं थे मेरे पास उसके लिए, तो मैं क्या बोलती? And then we need to put a lot of work into localizing these languages. The Tamil Nadu state has done such a great job of building that glossary of queer terminology, and it was in consultation with queer community. So we really need to put our brains to localizing our languages so that it goes down to the
Yeah.
grassroots, right?
Yeah. You know, also when you mentioned Kerala, I always love telling this story. I don't know if someone already brought it up, but one of the textbooks there have there's a trans man, Adam Harry,
Yes.
and it has his story in there, and I'm like, what? that is so amazing, right? Like the moment that happens. Of course, like you said, pockets where this is happening. So definitely that work needs to spread. If from the Rainbow Sweekar point of it, how do parents deal with language? Like we started this by talking about like the weight that some of these words carry. So how do you all deal with getting parents to look past it? Because like when I was coming out, people would be like, "Yo, hijra," like with that kind of a thing.
Whenever a new parent, for example, who's not initiated with these kind of things, we sort of make them the center of the communication. So when they start talking, and we start speaking about our experiences and all, so they see that what are these new terms. So it's done in a very subtle way where they do not feel left out, because what happens is when you're new, especially on the WhatsApp group where we talk a lot of things, they feel it very overwhelming because ye sab kya hai? Suddenly it's coming at them, and some of them they feel scared. What if I speak something wrong? What if I share something which is not it hurts somebody? So there are so many such platforms where there are whenever we meet at some events like Gulabi Mela, or we meet wherever we meet, it's very heartening to see everybody is eager to learn. And I think those informal discussions, those kind of they feel, good, I came here today. The eldest one, the member of our Sweekar family is 80 plus.
Wow.
But then there are some people who approach us as queer people who are on they're 16 and 17. And so, it's difficult to talk to the child directly because they are minor. So we'll have to address the parents. Okay, and that's what we did many times we do that, if it is possible for anybody who volunteers. So we go and speak, if not the house, anywhere else. So somewhere where they'll feel comfortable, whether it's the child and the parent or only the parent. It need not be a child, sometimes it's an adult who's very much 30 plus or something, but still the parents don't accept it. And then there are a lot of other issues that come up, that when we meet in that way, they realize that again that they are not the only people. That immediate change takes place. And so then there are people who approach us, and I'm happy to say that my own school parents, where I had taught earlier, those parents have come and approached me. And I found that so, I don't know, that's some different kind of joy. So this is something that I think should happen. All the rainbow parents should be out there, talk about not only their own experiences, but advocate for the whole all the people who feel so, left out. So if parents also get that kind of support, if they find that, okay, there are more people like us, I think that's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. So it's really good to know that this is a form of support that is available for LGBTQI individuals. What are other forms that you all have come across in your work?
Somehow books or content did help. And then other forms of literature just comes to you. And then somehow I found my solace in books. And there's this one book called Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh
There's
my
this
God.
incredible line in that which says you accept the love you think you deserve. Oh my goodness, that cracked me open like crazy. So it is not always we should be dependent on people. There is a great amount of entertaining work where we can take our inspiration from, and that really helps. That really somehow helped me to go across so many dangerous stuff.
Wow.
So
I could see it from like the way you told that how much that poem meant for you. And definitely, right, like media and education, media, especially entertainment, TV, film, docu, all have gotten so good with this, lucky, such a... Because for me, one of the key things that helped me was the documentary disclosure to get to my identity. And one of these lines that I saw in Pose, I think, I'm not saying the line exactly, but honey, we don't have the luxury for shame and guilt, right? Like, not guilt, but shame. Because like that was the moment I actually first time realized that pride means, oh, why is it pride? Oh, because shame. Because it's supposed to be shameful, right?
Yeah.
So that's why pride. I'm like, yeah, why pride all this? Why? And when she said that, I'm like, yeah, those lines stick with you. You know,
absolutely.
it's a very incredible form of support. I'm glad that in India we are just about getting there. You know.
I think, when I was coming out to my mother, at that time there was this show on NDTV called Salam Zindagi.
Yes.
And in one of the episodes of that, we had Ghazal Dhaliwal come. And Ghazal was one of the first, out and proud trans women who then went into filmmaking and screenplay and all. When I was trying to tell my mother that, I want to transition, which will include medical and surgical transition, changing name, etc., she didn't understand what I'm trying to say. She's like, oh, you want to become a hijra. You are a medical student. You are going to become a doctor. What will you do now? You lose your education. You'll have to beg on the streets. What will you do? And then I said, look at Ghazal. This is how I will look. And this is how I will be a professional even after my transition. So you have those things to show to people, because there is a lot of caricature being done of the trans. I mean, even in the films right now, if you see, we still are used as comic characters, or there's a lot of before after when it comes to trans people, and there's a lot of pressure on also becoming the perfect man or perfect woman as a trans man or a trans woman. And when it comes to non-binary folks, I mean, that is still an area of confusion for a lot of people. So it's these things of visibility which are important, and that was an episode which really helped me. I know a lot of people would have seen, for example, Simran on that Amir Khan show. What was the name?
Satyamev
Satyamev Jayate.
So many people,
Yes.
so many have mentioned that story.
Yes, and how that has helped, because it was there on the national television. But I also remember another episode from my childhood, and I think I was just, my age was in single digit at that time. And Mahabharat was playing on the screen, and you knew, the kind of craze around watching Mahabharat every Sunday. We had few TVs, and that episode of Shikhandi came.
Oh yes.
No, that was supposed to be good, but then it didn't turn out to be a very good experience for me. Because that day when I went down into the street, I got really ganged up by a group of boys who started calling me Shikhandi. And then, it was such a scary scene for me, because it's like, oh, they are going to harm me, or now maybe I have this label. Now everyone knows that I'm Shikhandi, and I'll be abused and teased for that word. So it's very important, the media portrayal and how that can really shape your experiences of coming out and identity.
I'm glad, but like what you said, that there's those changes happening, and we have those, like that episode, or even you, right? For me, like you said that I'm going to be like this woman, like Ghazal Dhaliwal. I said I was going to, like you, because we're Muslims. So I had like Trinitra, and I'm like, yes, okay, that makes it real, and there's everybody else. And then I still needed one more intersectionality, which was Muslim. And then there's I'm like, that I'm going to be like, sharing so much. And I think like some of the things that kind of stick with me, right, is the power of having that one teacher. And it's so powerful to have, like the story you shared about being in the university you are and having someone come and approach you to talk to. It can be anything. You can direct it towards anybody.
Okay, so I'll just go first. I feel we as humans are learning forever. Even learning new things has to be a learning thing. I mean, it's something that we whatever we've learned till now, we find it difficult to unlearn. I think that is the first thing today we should do. So, that we can relearn some new things today, the kind of vocabulary. So this goes for everybody, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, or you're a, any person who's working in any corporate space, wherever you're working, there are a lot of things that you need to unlearn. So I think and so every space is a learning space. And if we are talking about inclusion in learning spaces, so that is the first thing I feel that is what even I as a parent have done. I've unlearned a lot of things. So if we start from there and we, take in as much as we can, I think we'll go a long way. Things will be different. Things will be, and the more important thing is the harmony in the society. I think one day definitely will be there, but we need to work on it each day and every moment.
Maybe I'll go
Yeah.
next.
Very
Are we going in chronological order of age?
Oh gosh.
Now,
So, I think when it comes to spending time in education, we are increasingly spend more and more of our lives learning and informal education. And especially when it comes to children, most of their awake life is spent in educational spaces, and those experiences shape their life forever. And we all have only one life. That's what I believe. And only one childhood. And whether we get accepted, we get the love in that childhood, determines a lot of our life. And when queer children are not accepted, especially in educational spaces or in their homes, for example, it's very traumatic for them and for the people who love them, including their parents, their teachers, etc. I think it's a collective responsibility of the society to ensure that that child who is voiceless and who is suffering, does not have to suffer any longer, or the children who are going to come in future don't have to suffer like how many of us have suffered. And it's a collective responsibility to do whatever we can and to stop doing what we have been doing and which is harming them, to ensure that those children have a life which is happy, joyous, and full of ambitions.
yeah. Thank you. It's very beautiful.
I'll go first, please.
Chronologically.
Oh gosh, now I feel my age also. Like, so wow. I'm getting so nicely old, but I'm just not there yet. Let me just.
Age is a social construct.
Yes, age is absolutely a social construct. With the stories that I have shared, though, it is definitely one.
To what Dr. Aqsa said, that it is collective responsibility to ensure that we're all loved and we're all protected and we all grow up in nurturing environments. Because children come into the world not knowing, and we teach them to be certain ways and we inflict all these experiences on them. And I'd just like to say that should you grow up without having those freedoms, and should you grow up not being able to live your best lives, there is support available. Thankfully, we've come a long way in provision of mental health care support. Thankfully, there's organizations doing really pioneering work. I'll speak of the Humsafar Trust. It has an on-board psychiatrist and a counselor. In Mumbai, there is Leher Mental Health, which provides queer affirmative counseling. Karma Care is doing some really great work across the country in queer affirmative mental health. So there is support available. It may be under-resourced and it may not be enough, but try to access it to whoever is listening to this. Bringing back to the point of education, should you be wishing to access higher education and have constraints in doing so, reach out to the Humsafar Trust and there is support available.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for sharing all of that. And like what you just said, the Humsafar Trust and education support, like I actually got to benefit from that. Humsafar Trust was able to contribute towards my fees and a few others. But thank you all so much. And thank you for giving me your time and giving us your time and going through this entire conversation. So thank you, Dr. Aqsa. Thank you, Meghna ma'am. Thank you, Suditi. Thank you, Tejaswi sir. Thank you, Tejaswi sir. Doctor, I was going to say.
Next year. One year is still pending.
To be.
And also just creating spaces. So thank you to the Humsafar Trust for creating this space, which they were able to do with the help of a CSR initiative by the BMC Software Company Limited. So thank you for creating that space. All right. And
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rayan. Thank you for
being
such a
such
lovely.
a wonderful,
Yeah,
such an
host.
amazing host.
Yeah.
And not just
Yeah.
that, very thinking. I always said this, even before this, whenever I've heard you speak, you are so ready with all your material. I've never seen you unprepared. So that's a wonderful quality.
Yeah.
I've seen her unprepared also, but somehow she has made it up so well that it doesn't look like she's unprepared at all. She has such a nice way of not just like asking people to see, she'll share it personally and will make the conversation so lively. Otherwise, it is very difficult to just be a host, and otherwise your job is like, hey, you tell, you speak, you speak. But she makes it so gracefully amazing. She makes it like, she will also share her own personal experience. So
Thank
I'm very
you.
happy to do that.
I absolutely love hearing more stuff about me, and we should do a discussion about that. But I'd also like to thank our amazing team here. There's folks that we have been pretending are not existent. Thank you all. And also Hamsava team, if you can just come in here, and we'd like to all just, thank you. Yeah. Oh, if you all can just clap so this is a little less awkward, please. We are queers. We need to celebrate everything.
Absolutely.